Hi, so you join me again in the jungle, and behind me is the ayahuasca kitchen, which is currently not cooking ayahuasca because they've made all that they need for our ceremonies. But as you can see, it's pretty basic. Let's just walk in there, and here we help to prepare the ayahuasca. Um, Got to help mash up the vine itself and some of the other plants, crunch them up with our hands, then blew tobacco smoke on some of those, put an intention into the pot, and it went on just on top of these, like it was a cauldron on top of these bricks here, with logs shoved in underneath. I've walked down here just to get a bit of space again to talk to you. I don't think I quite was very coherent. I don't know if I will be this time, but last time there were a few things I kind of wanted to get across, and one was simply that I think that the way that people come come to describe their ayahuasca experiences tends to give the the sense of coherence, which isn't really there when you're having the vision and isn't really there for about the day afterwards. So although I'm about to tell you about what happened in my second ceremony, I should, I definitely want to emphasize that the kind of messages or ideas and sense of learning that I've got from that session has only really kind of developed um, over the course of the day after and a bit the day after that, which is today. Here, and it seems like an extremely important element of it, we have a talking circle. So far it's been not the day after, but the following day after a ceremony, so that everyone can talk and share their experiences and everyone takes something from those things. And in the course of talking and just getting those things out there, a bit like this, to be honest, it helps to formulate and manage to understand better what it is that you saw, because it can be just so enormously abstract and enigmatic that you can't just say, well, I assume for most people, from what I've heard here and for myself, you can't just say, I saw this and it was totally clear. You need that period of reflection and then a kind of working through. So, having said that, I wanted to recap that when I came out of my first ceremony, not literally when I came out, then I was just kind of bumbling, um, I, I felt disappointed. And I felt disappointed, which told me that I had had expectations, which you're not meant to have. You're discouraged from having them because they're not going to be met, because, as I think just about anybody who has drunk ayahuasca that I'm aware of has said, you don't get what you expect and you don't get necessarily what you ask for, because it may be that what you need is not what you want. Um, and you're going to get what you need with ayahuasca. You're going to get those elements, and so it can often be a surprise, and sometimes an uncomfortable surprise, when what you think you need to work on turns out to be not the issue at all. So I felt disappointed because, as I described last time, I had this kind of wall in front of me and I was stuck in my head over analyzing everything. And so I was disappointed in myself, I was frustrated, and then I was frustrated that I was frustrated. And I thought, oh great, I've come here, what was the point? Because I'm going to sabotage this with my own stupid overthinking. I'm going to bring this down, because can I get out of my head? If the problem for me so often is overthinking and being overcritical and being overly mean about things that are actually positive, then if I can still do that under the influence of ayahuasca and compromise the process, then surely I'm fucked. But over the course of the day, and with the talking circle before it, uh, and I think just being able to talk to the others, it gave me more clarity. And I thought, okay, so what I really need to do here is just clear my mind a bit more. I need to be able to go into the ceremony, the next ceremony, and just say, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and whether I like it or not, that's what will be. And quite a few people had the same sort of feeling, so I was far from alone in that. So, having tried to control that sense of disappointment, and you can only do it so far, in terms of, you know, you have come here for reasons, you want to leave with lessons, whatever they may be. So if you're just going to get a wall and a kind of enigmatic silence, then that's not great. So I went in. I was given, I think, a fuller cup this time, and a lot of the experience was very unpleasant. What followed, I was again sort of trapped in a bizarre kind of carnival. The Icaros were like a soundtrack to some kind of deeply disturbing performance. There were twirling patterns like fans, there were kind of purplish colours. This is all in the dark, so I'm just seeing this in my mind's eye. And a number of like really odd images I find it difficult to describe, that made me feel nauseated, and a lot of the purging that happened was sort of accompanied by really disgusting images of kind of hybrid fish earwig creatures kind of pulsating at me, and stuff covered in charred ashes, lots of really kind of sickening things. And a lot of it also felt like the sweeping colours and so forth felt really nauseating. There was a sense of impending threat. Some of the scenery in the Maloka before the last candle was blown out started looking menacing. The beam in front of me developed a face that was kind of gnashing its teeth at me, but I tried as best I could, just sort of go, okay, well, this is where it's going, this is where it's going. But let's get to the stuff that I think is, you know, actually got me somewhere, which is that... So this is going to be, I think, the hardest thing that I've had to talk about, because every time I think about it and talk about it, I end up crying. So let's see if that happens. A lot of the reason that I'm here is because I don't love myself, and I instead feel like I hate myself. And I asked Ayahuasca when I took the cup, you know, can you help me or show me how I can love myself, how I can just feel good about myself. And one of the key images that I got was, after a lot of other stuff, this is like in the second half or even further into the ceremony, I just saw myself as a child, myself as maybe like a child of a few years old, based partly on like photographs that I'd seen, but based partly also on, you know, just in my imagination. And I saw this little kid with this just happy smile, and I thought, how could anybody not just love that child? Why would anybody hurt that child? Why would anybody be mean to that child? I thought, well, so why are you? Why are you hateful and mean to that child? Because, okay, my mind tried to kick in and go, yeah, but that was then, and all this stuff has happened since, and you've changed in all these ways, you know, you can't think of yourself just as this little kid. But that was just kind of diffused. It felt like it wasn't a convincing point. Instead, I was just looking at this little boy, and I got to just pull him close and hug him and show him that I love him. And I saw later versions of myself at different ages, and I just felt the pain and the angst that built up over time. And I got to hug those versions too and hold them. And it felt good. It felt good because I could feel that, like, I care about the pain you're in. I love you. And the last part of that was to be able to, as me now, sort of take the other role and turn and see some sort of, you know, basically a version of myself now, but to be able to turn to that and receive the hug too. And that was intense and meaningful, deeply fucking meaningful. And I mean, you can see just thinking about it, talking about it. Of course, my phone would run out of juice and memory right at that moment. Okay, just a minute later. That didn't change. That doesn't change anything. And I mean, it changes something. It doesn't change everything. It doesn't change. I'm not suddenly like, oh wow, I love myself, everything feels fucking great now, there's no problem, why would I worry about anything? But I do have a new kind of thought pattern now. I do have a reference point, something I can look at, and I can just think of those images, and I can think, and the intense compassion and empathy that grows in me when I see those images of myself, and to be able to go when I feel shitty, when I think, you fucking idiot, I hate you, I hate this, I hate that, and I can think of turning to myself and just being embraced. that changes something a lot. Some negative part of my mind keeps trying to destroy it, keeps trying to undermine it, keeps trying to delegitimize it and say it's bullshit, say it's meaningless, saying it's silly. But fuck that. I'm not going to let that happen. And I feel, like I've mentioned before, there's the kind of extra depressive voice that comes in and says, oh yeah, really? You think so? I say, I'm going to fight to keep that. He's like, yeah, that sounds pretty sad. Why would you bother doing that? Why not stay realistic? Why are you trying to build yourself up fighting for something that sounds silly? Is this a fairy tale? What the fuck are you talking about? Get real. Fuck that voice. I'm just going to try and focus on that image and the power of it, and try and hold close to that. So other things happen in that vision, but that was the most important thing. Again, I'd mentioned, that even as I was seeing it and experiencing it, I wouldn't say that the kind of clarity and understanding and meaning and the profundity of it were really clear. And it was only really during the next day when I was writing it out, I was writing things down in a little journal I'm keeping, that things began to kind of make more sense, and me to be able to take that meaning from it. So in part, a lot of this process, this ayahuasca experience, is going to happen afterwards, and that means not just like a couple of days after, but the prolonged period after. And I think that should be emphasized for anyone who's trying to understand it. So yeah, I'm gonna go and have a sit down and a few deep breaths. So I'll speak to you next time.